Before we dive into the story, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from, and don't forget to like and subscribe so this channel can keep growing and bringing you more stories. Now, let's begin. Silence. That single word was enough to describe our dining room for the last 7 days. It was a heavy, unnatural silence, colder than ice and heavier than stone. In the middle of the table, a bowl of chicken soup with ginger and lemongrass still sent up thin curls of steam beneath the chandelier, as if stubbornly pretending this was a warm family dinner. But that warmth couldn't penetrate the frozen shell around the three of us, me, my mother-in-law, and my 5-year-old son. My name is Anna. I sat straight-backed, forcing down rice that felt like sand in my throat. Across from me sat my mother-in-law, Susan, whose face used to carry a gentle, welcoming smile. Tonight, it was as stiff and cracked as a broken porcelain mask. Her eyes, once soft and motherly, were hollow now, glinting with sharp little flashes whenever they slid toward me. Between us, perched in his high chair, sat my only child, Ben, my small son in this dark house. The soft clang of his spoon against his bowl sounded painfully loud in the choking silence. Exactly 7 days earlier, our world had collapsed. My husband Adam, Ben's father and Susan's precious only son, had died in a sudden work accident. No goodbye, no time to prepare, just a phone call that shattered everything. Since then, the house that had been full of laughter and warmth had turned into a mausoleum. Susan seemed to have lost half her soul, but instead of letting us grieve together, she built a wall and put me on the other side. Her sorrow hardened into something else: accusation, rejection, hatred. I felt like an intruder in my own home. That night was the worst. The seventh-day memorial had ended that afternoon. Our last visitors had left, and now it was just the three of us and the suffocating quiet. Ben, innocent as always, tried to cut through it. "Grandma, look, I made a mountain out of rice," he said proudly, pointing at his plate. His clear, ringing voice sounded like a little bell in a graveyard. I gave him a thin smile, trying to encourage him, but it felt tight and bitter on my face. Susan didn't react at all. Her wrinkled hand kept stirring her soup in slow, mechanical circles, as if trapped in its own storm. I took a breath and tried again. "Mom, would you like some more soup? It's still warm," I offered, forcing my voice to be as gentle as possible. Susan's spoon stopped. She lifted her head and looked straight at me. Her stare was icy, piercing, and filled with something I had never seen in her before: pure hatred. For several long seconds, we just stared at each other. I could hear my own heartbeat thudding in my ears. Then she set her spoon down with a loud clang that made Ben jump. "That's enough," she hissed. Her voice was rough, sharp like rusted metal. "Enough with the little show, Anna." I froze. "What show?" I managed to whisper, though part of me already knew where this was going. "The act of being the good daughter-in-law, the devoted wife. That ended the day my son was lowered into the ground," she said, narrowing her eyes. "All this time, you and that boy have done nothing but live off him. You're both leeches, clinging to my son's back. Now that he's gone, you're nothing in this house. Nothing." Her words crashed over me like a tidal wave, knocking the air out of my lungs. It hurt worse than any knife ever could. I felt tears fill my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. "This is my home too," I said, my voice shaking. It was Adam's home. Susan let out a dry, joyless laugh. "Adam's home? This is my house," she snapped. "The house I built with my husband. Adam just lived here, and I won't have strangers staying here any longer. You and that boy will be out of here tomorrow morning." My heart seemed to stop, thrown out. 7 days after my husband's death, my own mother-in-law was throwing me and her only grandchild onto the street. The room spun around me. I searched her face for any trace of the kindness I used to know, but there was nothing. Only a woman blinded by grief and greed. In her mind, Adam's death meant his money was hers. While my chest was collapsing, a small, cheerful voice cut through the tension. "Grandma, are we going somewhere tomorrow? To the park?" Ben asked. He had heard "out of here" and turned it into an adventure. Then the most heartbreaking thing happened. Ben beamed, his whole face lighting up. "Yeah, tomorrow we'll go. "I want to go with Grandma," he chirped. He thought this was a game. His smile, his nod, his pure excitement, all of it became a knife twisting in my chest. He was agreeing to the cruel order he didn't understand. Susan saw his reaction and a thin, ugly smile curled her lips. "See, even your own son understands. Don't stay here and be a burden any longer," she smirked, using his innocence as proof that she was right. Something inside me broke. At the same time, something stronger began to rise from the wreckage. It wasn't sorrow anymore, it was anger, cold, controlled, and blazing. I dropped my gaze, not in defeat, but to hide the fire in my eyes. Under the table, my hand clenched into a fist so tight my knuckles turned white. She thought I would beg. She thought I would cry and throw myself at her feet. She had no idea who she was dealing with. She had just insulted a mother's child. That's a line you never cross. I lifted my head and met her triumphant stare. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I simply nodded once. To her, it probably meant surrender. To me, it was a declaration of war. That night, I didn't eat another bite. I sat there and let the cold seep into my bones, forging my heart into steel. Tomorrow morning, my son and I would leave, but we would not leave as victims. We would walk out to start a new life. And I silently swore that this woman sitting across from me would regret every word she'd thrown at us for the rest of her days. When that trial of a dinner finally ended, I took Ben straight to our room. He was still chattering excitedly about our trip. "Mom, where are we going tomorrow? The zoo? The beach? Can I bring my red car?" he asked, bouncing on the bed. Every happy word felt like a slap. How could I explain to him that we were being kicked out? That the grandmother who used to spoil him had just thrown us away? I couldn't. Not that night. For one more evening, I decided to let him live in his bright little world. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, forcing a smile. "You can bring any toy you want, but first you need to sleep so you have lots of energy tomorrow." My smile felt like a heavy mask. I stayed beside him until he drifted off, his breathing soft and even. He clutched a small photo of his father as he slept, his face peaceful in the dim light. That sight gave me strength I didn't know I had. I kissed his forehead and promised silently that I would never let anyone hurt him again. Then I stood up and began our real task, packing our lives into a few suitcases. The room that had once held our laughter and late-night whispers now felt cramped and unfamiliar. I opened the large wooden wardrobe where my clothes and Adam's shirt still hung side by side. His cologne lingered faintly on the fabric. I took one of his favorite flannel shirts and hugged it tightly. For the first time that night, I let my tears fall, silently, so they wouldn't wake Ben. I cried for Adam, for my son, and for the version of myself who had to be so strong while feeling so fragile. Then I wiped my face and kept moving. I packed Ben's clothes first, then mine. Every object I touched replayed a memory. The dress Adam bought me for my birthday, the shoes we picked out on vacation. Each one was a small wound. I forced myself to work quickly, taking only what mattered most: clothes, important documents, a few photo albums, Ben's favorite toys. I refused to touch anything Susan could claim as hers. I didn't want her furniture, her jewelry, her things. I wanted our memories and our future. When I crouched to check the bottom drawer of Adam's nightstand, my fingers bumped into something solid. It was a small, plain wooden box. It had always been there, but Adam had once told me not to open it unless there was an emergency. I'd respected his privacy and never asked. Tonight, for the first time, I felt that this was the emergency he'd meant. My hands trembled as I set the box on the bed. There was no lock. I opened it slowly. The faint creak of the hinges seemed to cut through the stillness of the house. Inside, everything was neatly arranged. Several bank books from different banks, investment certificates with both our names, and a thick sealed envelope. I flipped through the bank books one by one and felt my eyes widen. The balances were far higher than I'd ever imagined. I knew Adam had a good salary and worked hard, but I had never guessed how much he'd quietly saved. He had never flaunted it, never used money to show off. Our life had always been simple. Behind that simplicity, my husband had been carefully building a safety net for us. I picked up the brown envelope. On the front, in his handwriting, were the words, "For Anna, my beloved wife." My heart clenched. I tore it open gently and pulled out a handwritten letter. Seeing his familiar, steady writing made my throat ache. I began to read. "My dearest Anna, if you're reading this without me beside you, it means I failed to keep my promise to grow old with you. I'm sorry. I know you must be in so much pain right now, but please be strong for our little hero, Ben. This letter isn't meant to make you cry, but to equip you. I know my mother. She's a good woman, but grief and fear can change people. If she ever becomes difficult, if you ever feel unsafe or unwelcome there, don't hesitate to leave. Your happiness and Ben's happiness are my top priorities even after I'm gone. Everything in this box is what I've managed to save for you too. I didn't tell you the details because I didn't want you to worry. Think of it as our safety net. Use it to start a beautiful new life. Buy a comfortable home wherever you like. Send Ben to the best school. Start that business you've always dreamed about. Do anything that makes you both happy. Don't let anyone, not even my own mother, steal your joy or your rights. Legally, I've already arranged everything with my lawyer. These assets belong to you and Ben. Love your life, Anna. Find your smile again. And please tell our boy every day how much his dad loves him." The letter ended there. That single sheet of paper felt unbelievably heavy, weighted with love, responsibility, and trust. My tears now fell for a different reason. My husband, even from beyond the grave, was still protecting us. He had seen this storm coming somehow and built us a lifeboat. This wasn't just money. It was a lifeline, a final act of love. I folded the letter carefully, placed it back in the envelope, and slid it into my handbag. Fear and confusion faded, replaced by a fierce, clear resolve. By the time dawn began to seep through the curtains, my suitcases were lined up by the door like silent soldiers ready to march. I hadn't slept at all. I sat on the edge of the bed, listening to the ticking clock, counting down our last moments in this house. When the sky turned pale, I gently woke Ben. "Hey, buddy. Time to get up. Our adventure starts today," I whispered. His eyes fluttered open, then lit up at the word adventure. He jumped out of bed with his usual boundless energy. I helped him wash and dress in his best outfit, a little polo shirt and jeans Adam had bought him a few months earlier. "We've got to look cool for this adventure, right?" I teased, combing his hair. He nodded enthusiastically, completely unaware of the heaviness in my chest. His innocence hurt, but it was also my greatest reason to keep moving. At 6 sharp, I opened our bedroom door. The creak sounded louder than ever in the quiet house. Ben hugged his tiny backpack and I pushed our 3 big suitcases toward the stairs. Each step felt like walking through wet cement, but I kept going. In the living room, Susan sat in her favorite rattan armchair, a cup of coffee in hand. I had no doubt she'd gotten up early just to see us leave and savor her victory. She wore an old house dress. Her hair was messy, but her eyes were sharp and alert. A thin smirk played on her lips. She took a slow sip of coffee before speaking. "Oh, you really are leaving? Good. I thought you'd spend all night crying and begging. Turns out you have a little pride after all," she said casually, every word a thorn. I stopped and looked straight at her. I refused to give her the drama she wanted. No yelling, no tears. My silence would be my strongest answer. "We'll go now," I said evenly. My calm seemed to annoy her. "Good, get out. I'm sick of seeing your faces. This house needs to be cleansed of bad luck," she snapped. My blood boiled, but I swallowed it for Ben's sake. I nodded once, then turned back to the door and continued pushing the suitcases. When I opened it, Ben turned and waved cheerfully. "Bye, Grandma. I'll send you pictures from our adventure," he shouted. There was a brief silence. I waited, hoping for one last glimmer of love for her grandson. All I heard was a harsh snort and then the slam of her bedroom door. No goodbye, no final hug. Whatever respect I had left for her evaporated in that moment. Outside, the cool morning air wrapped around us like a blessing. On the front porch where Adam used to sit reading the paper on weekends, I pulled out my phone and booked a ride. While we waited, Ben and I perched on one of the suitcases. "Mom, why is Grandma mad?" he asked suddenly. The question I'd been dreading. I met his clear eyes and crouched in front of him. Grandma isn't really mad at you, sweetheart. She's just very sad because Dad is gone. Sometimes grown-ups act strangely when they're sad, I said, choosing the gentlest lie I could. He seemed to accept that, nodding thoughtfully. A few minutes later, a car pulled up at the gate. The driver helped us load the suitcases into the trunk. We climbed in, and I gave him the address, a 5-star hotel in the city center. His eyebrows rose a little, but he said nothing. As we pulled away, I glanced back at the house one last time. Just then, I caught a glimpse of a curtain in Susan's bedroom twitching aside. She was watching us, making sure we really left, enjoying the final scene of the drama she'd created. I stared back at that window and felt a thin smile tug at my lips. Not a sad smile this time, but one full of promise. Enjoy this victory while you can, I thought. It's the last smile you'll have at my expense. The drive into the city felt like traveling to another world. The streets grew busier, the buildings taller, the past shrinking behind us as the future rose glittering ahead. Ben pressed his face to the window, amazed by the skyscrapers. When we arrived at the hotel, the enormous lobby with its gleaming marble floors and sparkling chandelier made him gasp. "Mom, is this a castle?" he whispered. I couldn't help but laugh softly. For now, yeah, this is our temporary castle. We probably drew some curious looks, a woman and a little boy with too many suitcases, but the staff stayed professional and kind. They guided us to the suite I'd booked using a small portion of the money Adam had left. This wasn't about showing off. It was about safety, about giving Ben a soft landing after such a brutal fall. We spent the rest of that first day resting and getting used to our surreal luxury. The next morning, breakfast was a buffet of pastries, fruit, and warm dishes that made Ben's eyes shine. For the first time in over a week, I watched him eat with genuine appetite. The sight soothed something deep inside me. After we finished, I dropped him off at the Hotel Kids Club, where trained staff watched over children. "I'm just going out to find a map for our next adventure," I told him with a wink. He grinned and waved me off. I wasn't lying. I was going to find a map to our future, locked away in a downtown bank. In the taxi, I opened the wooden box again, reread Adam's letter, and studied the bank books and certificates. Stocks, mutual funds, government bonds, words Adam used to try and explain while I'd laugh and say, "I trust you, you handle the boring stuff." Now I regretted not listening more. But regret wouldn't help. I was at the helm now. I couldn't afford to look confused or weak. I had to walk into that bank like a woman who knew exactly what she was doing. The bank's glass and steel tower sparkled under the sun. Inside it was cool and quiet, filled with soft hums of air conditioning and the tap of keyboards. I went straight to the priority customer desk and gave my name and Adam's. Soon, a well-dressed, middle-aged man emerged from his office, hand outstretched. "Mrs. Anna, please come in. I'm very sorry for your loss." Adam wasn't just a client. He was a pleasure to work with, he said warmly. His name was Mr. Turner, the branch manager. I thanked him, keeping my voice steady. "I'm here to take care of some things regarding my husband's assets," I explained. He nodded with genuine understanding. "Of course." Adam prepared everything very carefully. He once told me, "I don't work hard for myself. I work so my wife and son will never lack anything no matter what happens." He was a very far-sighted man. His words made my chest ache, but in a warmer way. I handed over our documents. Death certificate, marriage papers, IDs, bank books, certificates. Mr. Turner examined them and began opening Adam's accounts on his screen. I saw his eyebrows lift slightly at the totals. He turned the monitor toward me. "Legally, under the will and power of attorney Adam signed, everything passes directly to you as sole heir," he said. The numbers on the screen made me feel dizzy. What I'd seen in the box at home had only been a fraction. Most of Adam's wealth was invested, blue-chip stocks, government bonds, long-term funds that had quietly grown over the years. This wasn't just enough to get by. This was serious money, a responsibility as much as a blessing. For a moment, I felt small and overwhelmed. Then I pictured Ben's face and remembered Susan's contempt. The fear melted away, replaced by a cold, steady confidence. This wasn't a curse. It was a gift. It was my armor and my sword. "All right, Mr. Turner," I said, surprised by the calm in my own voice. I'd like to liquidate some of the bonds and all the cash accounts, then consolidate everything into a new account in my name." His eyes changed, the pity in them replaced by professional respect. "We can certainly do that. It will take a few business days to fully process the investments. If you have any specific plans, I'd be happy to advise," he offered. I shook my head. "For now, securing the foundation is enough. I'll build the rest myself." For the next 2 hours, I sat signing document after document. Every stroke of my pen felt like another step forward, another nail in the coffin of the helpless woman Susan thought I was. The staff explained each detail patiently, and by the end, Mr. Turner walked me to the door and handed me a sleek platinum debit card. "If you need anything, call me directly," he said. I shook his hand firmly. "Thank you for helping me carry out my husband's wishes." When I stepped back out into the sunlight, I felt like a different person. I had entered as a widow pushed out of her home. I walked out as a woman holding the keys to her own future. And yes, I couldn't help thinking the real game had just begun. As comfortable as the hotel was, I knew it was only a temporary nest. Ben didn't need a series of rooms with room service. He needed a real home, a place that would always be there when he opened the door. That night, after he fell asleep in the fluffy hotel bed, I sat at the desk with my laptop and a mug of tea. Adam's words echoed in my mind. "Buy a comfortable house wherever you like." I wasn't going to look for a cramped rental. He hadn't worked this hard for us to scrape by. I opened listing after listing of high-end neighborhoods on the outskirts of the city, gated communities with parks, good schools, quiet streets. I wanted somewhere safe, somewhere where no one knew me as